Well, it's Kaiju month here at the review show with no name. And the first Kaiju movie we've got is the touching tale of a pharmacy and TV company who wants a monster on their news program. That's right, it's Godzilla vs. King Kong 1962. And let's jump on in. We start out with the news program that is reporting the news. UN news. Now, I don't think the UN could agree to what news should go on the news program, because I don't think the UN could agree to what's for lunch, or what kind of urinal to use in the bathroom, who to hire as a janitor, anything like that. But it's the UN news. They report on an earthquake in Chile, which has nothing to do with the movie. And they report on a submarine exploring some icebergs in the ocean off the coast of Japan that are melting. And they'll say they'll have more on this story, and they also report on some berries that the pharmacy company is having a hard time getting hold of because the islanders give them to a god on the island that is reportedly a giant. And then we go to pharmacy company, who they decide to send two people out to this island to get the god. The monster god, apparently. Now, this sounds like a bad idea, and it probably is. But what the hell? They need a monster for their TV program. And they don't want, and I think it's going to work. So then we go back to the story of the submarine, and submarine crashes into the iceberg, and the helicopter goes to find it, and Godzilla resurrects out of the iceberg. And we go back to UN News, which is reporting that Godzilla is headed for Tokyo. As Godzilla always is in these movies. Well, when he's a bad guy. He's a bad guy in this movie. He's still a terrorizer in this movie. Godzilla's still a terrorizer in this movie. He's still a bad guy, which I know we all like the good guy Godzilla, but at one point Godzilla was a bad guy. He's heading for Japan to wreck some shit. They later on have a doctor on this show who supposedly knows about Godzilla, and he breaks down what kind of dinosaur Godzilla is. Surprisingly, they do not call him a Godzillasaurus in this movie, which he was referred to in past movies. A Godzillasaurus did not exist, for those of you wondering. But we go back to the people going to the island. And they go to the island and are met by warriors of the tribe on the island, who rush them to meet the chief. And the chief tells them to leave immediately. But they bribe the chief with a radio and cigarettes, which they also give to a little kid. Which what I think I'm going to be doing this year for Halloween, just giving out cigarettes to the little kids. Here, Jimmy, have a pack of Marlboros. No, it's never too early for you to start smoking. And then they hear a roar, which they figure must be the god monster. And they head out into the woods to find him. Godzilla is still heading for Tokyo, and the military meets him when he reaches Japan, only for it to be a futile effort, as it always is when the military meets Godzilla. But they say the atom bomb is not off the table yet to stop Godzilla. Now, if Japan need to learn anything from World War II, it is not to use the atom bomb on Japan. But Godzilla is still wrecking shit. Well, the one guy needs to rest, so they send a little smoking kid who's clearly going to get lung cancer before the age of 25. out to get some of their berry juice so he can rest. But then a giant octopus attacks. I'm not making this up, people. The giant octopus attacks the house he's in. And him and his mom survive, but they're having this giant battle between the warriors with their spears and the other guy with his gun and a giant octopus. And finally, King Kong shows up to battle the giant octopus. And he throws some rocks at it, and it goes away. This is one of the worst looking King Kong costumes in the entire King Kong realm. It just kind of looks like a bad ape costume, but it's still King Kong, and we're happy. And then King Kong drinks the berry juice, and the warriors sing and dance to him, and he falls asleep. And then they decide, we're taking Kong home with us. Because whenever you see a giant sleeping ape, you've got to take him home with you, because that's your new pet, apparently. So they decide to take Kong home with them, and they load him on a boat, and they load the little floating thing with dynamite that Kong's on in case they need to blow it up. And we go back to the doctor on the UN news, and he says that Kong and Godzilla will definitely fight each other if they meet. So then Kong starts to wake up, and they're freaking out. They're like, we have to explode the dynamite. And the guy in charge of the company is like, no, we can't get rid of Kong. We have to keep Kong. I got to make money. And then they accidentally push the plunger to explode the dynamite, but it doesn't explode. And so they shoot the dynamite till it explodes, and Kong's free. Go after Godzilla. Godzilla attacks once more another city, and he attacks a bus, or train. Sorry, he attacks the train, but everybody gets away. But the army notices something important. Electricity hurts Godzilla, and he tries to avoid it. So this time, in defense of Tokyo, they put up high tension wires all around the city of Tokyo with 10 million volts in them, and it keeps Godzilla out. But Kong and Godzilla meet before reaching Tokyo, and they have a very short-lived battle. Kong throws some rocks at Godzilla, and Godzilla starts a fire which burns Kong, and Kong slithers away. Well, he doesn't really slither away because he's not a snake, but he kind of slumps away. So then Godzilla goes to Tokyo and feels the high tension wire and backs off. But as the doctor says on a news broadcast, there are a lot of news broadcasts in this movie, people. I mean, it's like watching a freaking episode of the news. That while electricity hurts Godzilla, it helps Kong. Kong gets power from electricity. So then Kong attacks Tokyo and goes right through the wires and starts destroying Tokyo. And then Kong gets another train, picks up the lead woman in this movie, whose name I don't remember, and climbs a building with her. And the army's about to attack, but then the people run in. They're like, "You can't attack. That's my sister." So they decide to explode missiles with the red berries in it over Kong, put him to sleep. And they play the music from the island. Kong goes to sleep, and they escape with the sister. But then they decide Godzilla's at Mount Fuji, and the premier is like, I'm not dropping the atomic bomb. Let's just have Kong face Godzilla. So they load Kong up on with some balloons, and they take Kong to Fuji, where they drop him from like 5,000 feet up, so we can cannonball Godzilla down the mountain. And then the battle is on, and Godzilla beats the shit out of Kong at first. But then there's an electrical storm which powers up Kong. And Kong beats the shit out of Godzilla. And then at the end, Kong swims back to his island, and there's no sign of Godzilla. But Godzilla, lives to tell another day, because there's a bunch of Godzilla movies. There are a bunch more Kong movies too. And that is Godzilla versus King Kong in a nutshell. It's a good movie. It's got a lot of goofy parts. I know people say Godzilla didn't really go child friendly till after Godzilla versus Mothra, but this movie is definitely child friendly. But yeah, it's got a lot of goofy parts, but it's got a good monster battle between Godzilla and Kong at the end. So I'll give it 12 out of 10 stars. Look it up. It's on YouTube. Godzilla vs. King Kong, 1962. It's on YouTube. Look it up. Join me next week for Craw.